Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Catalina Gillies.
And I'm Ryan Bonazzo. A big day today for Thunder Bay's rail car plant.
Ontario Transportation Minister Caroline Mulroney was joined by Alstom and Metrolinx officials to reveal the Ford government's latest commitment to create hundreds of local jobs over the next few years. Danielle Bain reports.
Today is really an exciting day for jobs and for transit in Ontario.
Minister of Transportation Caroline Mulroney joined hundreds of employees and members of the community at the local Alstom plant to announce another much-needed contract. The local facility will be upgrading some older GO train cars that were originally built here around 15 years ago.
I am very pleased to announce that our government is investing $171 million for the refurbishment of 94 GO Transit bi-level coaches right here at Alstom's Thunder Bay plant.
The news comes 6 months after the federal and provincial government announced a similar-sized contract for the plant to build another 60 new streetcars for the Toronto Transit Commission. President of Alstom Americas, Michael Carole, explained what this new contract means in terms of the number of jobs it will create.
This contract alone is going to give us work for 200 people for 2 years. And I remind you that we've signed in a few months back the TTC one, which is another 200 jobs for 2 years.
Phil Verster is the president of Metrolinx, the provincially funded operator of GO trains and other modes of mass transportation in southern Ontario. He believes this GO train refurbishment deal could lead to more contracts with Alstom in the future.
This is going to be really important. We want to see a good value for money result, focus on quality, a focus on on-time delivery and scheduled delivery. These are things that really matter. And so we're very excited. We think Thunder Bay has got a fantastic chance to deliver this, but this is the future.
President of Unifor Local 1075, Dominic Pascalino, was pleased to see more jobs for his members as the local plant has seen hundreds of layoffs over the past 2.5 years. He says it's clear the plant is still very reliant on the province for most of the work they'll be getting going forward.
Really, the bread and butter has always been Ontario. We depend on the Ontario government to give us the work that we need, and Ontario needs us. We've got great cars, we've got great quality. I mean, it's a win-win situation.
Although the new refurbishing contract is good in the short term, Pascalino says that 2 years is only just enough of a bridge to reach a good level of job stability at the plant. What they need now is a larger long-term contract, which in their case could be hundreds of new subway cars for the TTC. Danielle Bain, TBT News.
For the first time in 2 weeks, the number of active COVID-19 cases in the Thunder Bay district has gone down. The health unit is reporting 6 new cases today, all in the Thunder Bay area. 4 are close contact infections, while 2 exposure sources are still unknown at this time. There are now 91 active cases, 2 fewer than yesterday. Over in the Northwestern Health Unit, there are 5 new infections, 2 each in the Kenora and the Dryden-Red Lake regions. There's also 1 in the Rainy River District. There are 17 active cases across the NWHU, down from 20 on Monday. On the vaccine front, there was a big jump in numbers last week. Nearly 4,500 shots were administered. That's well over double the number that was given out the week before. More than 3,000 were booster shots. 7,800 people have now received 3 doses. About 900 first doses were administered last week. Remember, kids aged 5 to 11 didn't become eligible until this past Friday.
The province is still taking a wait-and-see approach when it comes to the new Omicron variant. 4 cases have already been confirmed in Ottawa, and 2 more suspected cases are under review in Hamilton. Colin DeMello has more on Ontario's response.
As the world grapples with the Omicron variant, Ontario has reached a grim COVID-19 milestone. 10,000 people have lost their lives to the virus in this province. More than 4,000 of those were in long-term care.
The loss of any life is extremely sad, and our condolences go to the families of those who have lost family members.
And now Ontario has logged at least 4 cases of Omicron. 4 international travelers, all of whom are isolating in Ottawa, have tested positive for the variant. 2 more are under investigation in Hamilton.
We have taken every precaution possible. We are working with the federal government in order to prevent people from traveling from several South African countries right now. There may be other countries that will be added to this list.
The province says its surveillance system will be able to catch additional cases, meaning it is not considering additional public health measures to curb the spread of the variant. The province is also considering speeding up boosters of the COVID-19 vaccine, which those in healthcare say is badly needed.
We only have a handful of cases of Omicron identified here in Canada. Yeah, there's probably more, but let's be clear here. There's a lot of Delta, and cases of Delta are on the rise in many parts of the country. So there's a very good reason, Omicron or not, to ensure that we really roll out vaccinations.
But the province is planning to lift proof of vaccination requirements and other public health measures beginning in the new year, which is being criticized by the opposition.
The ICUs are filling up, public health units are bringing back restrictions, and 10,000 people have lost their lives in Ontario due to COVID-19. Why is the Premier scrapping vaccine certificates when we could use them to prevent another province-wide lockdown here in Ontario?
If there is a dramatic change in circumstances, such as what might be prevented by this new variant, we still don't know enough about it to be able to make that determination, even though we are proceeding very cautiously. We don't know what we're dealing with, but we will be ready for it.
Colin DeMello, CTV News.
It was a bit busier than normal, but there were no long lineups today at the Pigeon River border crossing. Canadian travelers returning home are no longer required to present a negative PCR test if they've been gone less than 72 hours. And although there wasn't a big rush of travelers, officials at Ryden's border store still saw more customers before noon today than they had all of last week. Corey Nordstrom has more on that.
The Pigeon River border crossing was certainly busier than it has been for months, but not by much. There seems to be some hesitancy as Canadians are now allowed to return from the United States on short trips without needing to provide a negative PCR test. The lack of traffic not only surprised travelers, but those at Ryden's border store as well.
I thought there would be a lineup.
Well, we actually thought we'd be a little busier too, but we've been busier than we have been.
Ron Krudge of Niebing lives 5 minutes from the border and was fed up not being able to cross for nearly 2 years after becoming a regular at the border store.
At least once a week. It's been a pain, and quite honestly, I don't think it's fair that they've allowed the Americans to come in and not allowed us back in without the PCR test.
Okay.
Ryden's owner, Lori Boomer, has been patiently waiting for this day when Canadians could arrive and pick up some of the thousands of packages they have waiting in storage.
We've been down 90%. It's kind of been a ghost town, so this is a welcome reprieve. We have one customer that has, might be closer to 700 now, so I think it's going to be very busy.
With more traffic expected going forward, Boomer has taken it upon herself and her staff to inform Canadians that they will need to have their information on the ArriveCan app in order to return home. Krudge says the process is fairly straightforward.
We've already had to help 2 different groups that didn't have it, didn't know about it. Usually Customs sends them back, and then we help them out here and get them on their merry way.
It wasn't too bad. I'm fairly computer literate, so it's not a burden by any means.
Minnesota ranks near the top of the list as far as American states with high numbers of active COVID-19 cases. Yet Canadian travelers that we spoke with said they weren't particularly worried about traveling south of the border, knowing they would only be stateside for a short period. Corey Nordstrom, TBT News.
The 2 suspects in a 2020 Thunder Bay murder have both been released after there wasn't enough evidence for their cases to go to trial. 28-year-old Adrian Kadim Drysdale of Toronto was found seriously injured inside a May Street home in March of last year. He later died in hospital, and Thunder Bay police determined it was a homicide. 3 months later, police arrested a pair of 19-year-old men from Toronto and charged them with first-degree murder. Trayvon Stewart was discharged last month after a preliminary hearing. His co-accused, Terrell Williams, was committed to stand trial. But yesterday in court, the Crown decided to stay the charges, saying there was no chance for a conviction. City police now have 1 year to conduct a further investigation. But for now, Williams has been released from a jail in southern Ontario.
A local teenager has been charged for allegedly fabricating a story about a kidnapping. Thunder Bay police were called to a Parkdale area last night. A 16-year-old male told them a female that he was with had been abducted by people in a white pickup truck. An outside police agency was called in to assist with the investigation, but police later learned that the female victim doesn't exist. The male teen has been charged with mischief and obstructing a peace officer.
The Thunder Bay Police Services Board has now issued a written response after multiple complaints were submitted to the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. One of the applications came from former Police Board Chair and current board member Georgianne Morisseau, alleging systemic discrimination from board and police service leadership. She also criticized them on social media. Another human rights complaint was filed by Constable Kerry Dunning, who claims he was targeted for reprisal after expressing concern about the conduct of a superior officer. None of the allegations have been proven. The statement from the board reads, in part, the Thunder Bay Police Services Board takes complaints and concerns extremely seriously. It also says, quote, we have not received notice of any formal applications from the Human Rights Tribunal of Ontario. If that happens, we will cooperate fully and act appropriately within our existing powers, responsibilities, and mandate. The statement continues, recent public comments made on these matters and on the leadership of the police service are not reflective of the board's views or positions. The board speaks with one voice, and all official comments by the TBPS board will come from the office of the chair or her designate.
A new advocacy group has been formed aimed at speeding up the city's effort to create a multi-use trail along the Thunder Bay waterfront. The ambitious project is estimated to cost over $20 million and take a decade to complete. Started by the Port Arthur Rotary Club, the Waterfront Trail Rotary Community Action Team is looking to raise money and access grants to make it happen. The Waterfront Trail system could run from Fisherman's Park in the north to Mission Island Marsh in the south. The team has already recruited 15 other organizations and believes there's a lot of interest in the city. Action Team lead Warren Philp thinks their work will help lighten the load in the city for such a large project.
We see that there's an opportunity because there's a trail fund at the federal level, there's trail money at the provincial level. We see that potentially there'd be 3 levels of government funding and add the private dollars to it. It shrinks the burden on the municipal taxpayer.
We take a look at the waterways that we have available here, the accessibility for recreation, for sightseeing, and tourism is absolutely incredible, and we don't want to miss this opportunity. We think it's time to take a look at doing the trail.
The Port Arthur Rotary Club is also setting up a charity that will lend another avenue to raise money. The Action Team plans to outline its goals to the Waterfront Development Committee in the near future.
Today is a very important day for local charities. Giving Tuesday marks the unofficial start of the holiday fundraising season. So today, Lowry's offered up their parking lot to the Salvation Army to host the first ever drive-through kettle. It's now easier to make donations of $5, $10, or $20 with the kettle's new tap-and-go payment system. The goal today was to raise money for the Sally Ann's nightly soup van meal program. Local residents were driving in steadily throughout the day to make donations. Salvation Army Executive Director Gary Ferguson says they're beyond thankful for the community's support.
The Thunder Bay has such a warm heart. The community always gives. It's great to see people getting out there and doing that. People have been accessing the tap machines. We're so grateful to all the support that the community gives the Salvation Army.
It's a small part on our behalf, and we're very humbled to be part of this whole day, the first day of the tap. It's something new for the Salvation Army, and so we're just privileged to be part of this.
The kettle campaign has raised more than $31,000 to date, with a goal to hit $235,000 by Christmas Eve.